morning, friends. I am Amarnath. Today I'll discuss the topic of RCEP, Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement. Right? So, why this issue is important for this year mains? Right? So, if you take the importance of the issue, it is in news because by this year end, the member countries of ASEAN should have an agreement on this RCEP. So 2019 November is a deadline for concluding an agreement over this comprehensive economic partnership agreement. Right? So that is the ASEAN summit that was held in Bangkok reaffirmed the commitment to conclude RCEP agreement by the year end. That is, the next meet will be in November 2019. Then all the member countries of this ASEAN, right, along with the six other, that is 10 plus 6, should conclude this agreement. If you take the importance of this summit, the importance of this summit lies that in this summit, Malaysia and other countries, they wanted to conclude agreement, right, with those countries which are ready to join the partnership agreement, which are ready to join RCEP, leaving countries which have concerns with this RCEP. So if you recollect, India has voiced certain concerns on this RCEP agreement. But ASEAN, in the recently held meet in Bangkok, reaffirmed that at any cost this RCEP will be concluded by this year end, leaving those countries which have concerns. So along with India, Australia and New Zealand gave certain concerns on this RCEP, right? And it is not just Malaysia. Even before Malaysia, right, in the month of May, China earlier, right, clearly said that, right, it want to go ahead with this agreement, right, leaving those countries which have concerns, right, making a provision that those countries which have concerns can join this agreement later at a future date. That means China along with Malaysia, they want to conclude this agreement as early as possible, leaving countries like India, New Zealand and Australia. But there was an option, that is, these countries like India can join this RCEP the future date. Right? So that is what the significance of this issue. Right? So it is this ASEAN's Bangkok summit, right, held in June 2019, which brought the news of RCEP again, and 2019 is the deadline to conclude this agreement. So any country if it want to be a part of this agreement should join this agreement by November 2019, right? That is what the significance of the issue. So India is not yet decided. India has shown certain concerns. India has its own concerns, right? Because of these concerns, so there was no final conclusion on India's participation in this RCEP. Right? And it is even premature to think that India is out of this RCEP. It is not confirmed that it is not clear, and we cannot say that India is out of this RCEP agreement. Right? Now, why this RCEP is so much important? What is RCEP and why it is important? So as I said, RCEP is a regional comprehensive economic partnership agreement, right, which is a free trade agreement negotiated by 16 members of ASEAN bloc. It is an free trade agreement. RCEP is a free trade agreement between all these 16 members of RCEP. Right? So it is regarded as the biggest trade agreement which can change the face of global trade. So here, remember, because of member countries like India, China, Australia, New Zealand, South Korea, right? So this agreement is treated as the largest agreement which can even change the face of global trade. right, and at the same time it is important because if you take this world, if you take these member countries, they represent 45% of world population, 33% of world GDP, and 28% of global trade is within this RCEP countries, right? So that is what the importance of RCEP. So RCEP is a biggest trade agreement which can change the dynamics of global trade, given the fact that the population, the GDP, as well as global trade, that is within this member countries of RCEP. Right now, if you go to the roots, the genesis of RCEP, so RCEP was first time promoted by ASEAN countries in 2011, but a clear declaration on RCEP came on 2012, that is in Phnom Penh summit held in Vietnam. That is in Vietnam, Phnom Penh city of Vietnam, and where this meeting was held, and it is in this summit the member countries clearly came with a declaration on RCEP. Right? So this is what the genesis of RCEP. Right? So next, going to the concerns of India. Right? Next, going to the concerns of India. So what are the concerns of India in this RCEP? Why India is not yet ready to join RCEP? So why India is hesitating from this RCEP? Right? So we know that China wanted to go ahead with this agreement excluding India. So China want to have ASEAN plus 3. China want to have ASEAN plus 3, that is excluding India, Australia and New Zealand. So that is what China's idea is. That is, China has made ready, China has readied its mind to join this ASEAN. But why India is not that ready to take a decision? So what are those concerns that India has with this RCEP? So let us go to these concerns. Right? So if you take the concerns of India, right, India's chief concerns stems from the need to protect its economy from influx of cheap imports from China. So once this agreement is signed, if India becomes a member of RCEP, then there is every possibility of inflow of Chinese goods into Indian market, killing local manufacturers. So this RCEP has every effect of killing Indian market, Indian manufacturers. Right, that is what the main concern of India. And remember, India has not signed any free trade agreement with China, either in a bilateral form or in a multilateral form. So this worries the government of India. Right, so it is the main concern, it is the main concern of this RCEP, main concern for India in this RCEP. And China demands zero tariff. China demands zero tariffs on 90% of tariff lines. On 90% of tariff lines, which will have an adverse impact on Indian economy, particularly in two ways. That is once if India allows zero tariffs to Chinese goods. So China is demanding zero tariff on 90% of tariff lines. If this is really done, then definitely there will be a huge damage. There will be a huge damage to Indian economy, particularly in two ways. One will be in the form of, as I said, in the form of influx of cheap engineering goods into India. Right? So this zero tariffs will kill the Indian exports, particularly in the engineering sector, export of engineering goods, manufacture sector. The most likely sector that will get affected is the aluminium, copper, steel. It is this sector which will be affected if zero tariffs are allowed for China. Along with this engineering goods, the other major sectors are agriculture and dairy products. So this is what a concern of India, right, which is not a small concern, it is a huge concern. Right? Another thing is liberalization of tariffs under RCEP definitely will disrupt existing value chain linkage which India has with some of the member countries, some of the member countries of ASEAN. So India has India has a very good trade relations with members of ASEAN countries. But if Chinese are allowed, if liberalization is allowed, if zero tariffs are allowed, then China will compete with India in promoting its exports with these member countries, where India will lose the advantage. India's will come down. Indian exports, particularly to these countries, will come down. And remember, Chinese exports are always supported domestically by the government. Right? So this is what a cause of concern for India. That is, this liberalization of tariffs under RCEP, right? Definitely it will disrupt the existing value chain, right? Which India maintains with some of the member countries, right? So this is what the concern for India under RCEP, right? Because of liberalization of tariffs are allowed. Now another major concern in this RCEP is, right, increasing trade deficit. Already India has a trade deficit with 11 out of 15 countries of RCEP except Philippines. India has trade deficit with all other member countries of ASEAN. So if you take for instance, right, if you take broad trade flow analysis, right, which indicates that compound annual growth rate of imports is around 9.06 percentage, whereas the exports is at 2.90 percentage. So which clearly indicates a huge trade deficit between exports, huge trade deficits which India has with the member countries of ASEAN. So imports are higher when compared to exports. Except Philippines, India has no trade balance with any other country. So it is a major cause of concern. So I always caution that this RCEP is a form of free trade agreement. It only promotes a free trade. So if we can represent these concerns, right, concerns. So one is about, so I want to show in one is about influx of Chinese goods. Another one is about, right, disruptions in value chains. Another cause of concern is, right, it hampers exports of engineering goods. So whatever we said, right, we can even graphically present this, right, these concerns of India. So now if you take the benefits, how India will get benefited, whether RCEP will provide any opportunity for India. So how this RCEP is benefit for India. Right, given the size and growth of markets of these ASEAN countries, right? So they are one of the developed bloc. These ASEAN countries, they represent the fastest economic growing countries of the world, right? So if India can participate in this what you call RCEP, then India can promote its regional production network. It can eliminate multiple trade agreements with these countries, and most importantly, it can align its Act East policy. It can align its Act East policy with that of trade policy. So promoting both economic interest of the nation as well as protecting the maritime security, particularly in Indo-Pacific region. Right? Given the geopolitical conditions, right, now it is more important to protect our own maritime interests. Right? So RCEP provides platform where India can really protect its maritime security. So geopolitically, even RCEP is important. So where India can play a greater role in protecting its strategic interests, right? And apart from this, India will get a chance of framing, right, the rules and investment standards. If India comes out of this, it will be a great disadvantage for India. So participating in RCEP will provide India to frame the rules and investment standards. Right? So India can initiate this process. India can initiate this process of framing the global trade rules, which can benefit India, which can benefit Indian manufacturers. Right? So this is what the major benefits that India would get from joining RCEP, and even you can present them in a graphical form. Right? So one is securing Indo-Pacific region. Next one, right, promoting exports, right, in these ASEAN countries, right. It can take the advantage of framing global rules and standards. Next, India, right? India can avoid signing multiple trade agreements. India can sign multiple trade agreements with this country. So this is what the major benefits that India can accrue from joining RCEP. Now, when RCEP has got that significance, when RCEP is that important, why there is a delay in signing this agreement, right? So why delays are caused in this agreement? So if you take these reasons, the main stumbling block for RCEP is the Indo-China trade relations. Right? It is the Indo-China trade relations which has become a main stumbling block. That we know that China wants to have a demand which India is not agreeing. See, in fact, China is demanding zero tariffs on 90% tariff lines. India has already exceeded 74%. On 74%, India is promoting this. Right? So we have a certain disagreements between India and China. This is one reason. And similarly, Australia and New Zealand have their own concerns, right? Particularly concerns relating to labor and environmental protections. Right? So they have their own concerns. Next one, right? India has proposed a clause called as rules of origin. India has proposed a clause called as rules of origin, particularly to control free flow of cheap Chinese goods into Indian markets. Right? Now there is an every chance where China can route its goods to India through other countries, or simply China can use other countries to throw their goods into India. Now India want to strictly control this by clearly specifying the routes of origin of the goods, right? So which is not that acceptable for China. Now India is demanding for free flow of services, which were objected by some of the countries of this bloc. So now even the immigration laws of the ASEAN countries seems to be stringent, which were not in favor of allowing Indian immigrants to work in ASEAN countries. So the tightening of immigration laws, right, which is hampering free flow of manpower from India to other ASEAN countries. So these are the reasons, particularly for India. So Indo-China trade relations. Second one, the concerns of Australia and New Zealand. Third one, disagreement over rules of origin, free flow of services, free flow of manpower, the immigration laws of ASEAN countries, which is a cause of concern for India. Right? Apart from this, the ongoing US-China trade war, right, which have every chance of polarizing the member countries of this RCEP. So if you take this RCEP members, most of these countries either they have trade relations with US or trade relations with China. So because of this gap between US and China, this gap even can be seen on the member countries of RCEP. So there is every chance of a divide between these member countries of RCEP. So these can be cited as a reasons for delay in having agreement on RCEP. So these are the definite reasons for RCEP. Now how to go ahead from this impasse? What India should do, or how India can go ahead? So we know that RCEP provides a definite advantage to India, though there are concerns for India, but these concerns should not dominate over the advantages that RCEP provides to India. So India being a global leader, India being a global player, particularly in geopolitics as well as in the trade, India should definitely take the advantage of this RCEP. Now, how India can leverage this potential benefits of RCEP? So here we are proposing a three-pronged strategy. First, right, India should maintain its proposal of dual tariffs. So India took a stand of having dual tariffs. One tariff for free trade agreement countries, that is those countries which have FTA with India, and another tariff lines for those countries which do not have an FTA with India. Say for example, right, China, Australia, New Zealand, they don't have FTA with India. Now, a separate tariff line is maintained for this non-FTA countries, and a separate tariff line is maintained for FTA countries. So India should maintain this position. India should maintain its position on dual tariffs, right, which will help itself in protecting from vulnerability caused by cheap Chinese goods. So these dual tariffs will definitely help India to avoid the inflow of cheap Chinese goods. This is what one strategy. Second one, right, India should propose a non-tariff ecosystem with China so that it can promote its exports. Remember, India has a huge trade deficit with China. So to avoid this, to bring down this deficit, India should promote a non-tariff ecosystem. So phytosanitary, non-phytosanitary, you take labor. So, right, India should promote a non-tariff ecosystem, particularly to avoid disguised trade. So we know that RCEPs and FTA, there is an every chance where China can go for a disguised trade. That is, it can use this RCEP to cover up, right, to go for a free trade of goods, free trade of cheap Chinese goods into India. So this should be avoided. So I call this as a disguised trade. So to avoid this, a non-tariff ecosystem should be promoted. Right? So India should use its instrument of rules of origin. India should use its instrument of rules of origin, particularly to contain this free flow of Chinese goods. Right? Particularly in those areas of high value additions. So India should secure, so if we take the concluding note, I conclude that India should secure a deal that can protect the interest of domestic producers. At the same time, right, it can enable itself to participate in the RCEP value chains. So this is what a three-pronged strategy which we can propose, right, to safeguard India's interest and can take the benefits out of RCEP. Right? Now, if you take a possible question in UPSC, right? Now, first question can be asked on the concerns, on the benefits, on the recommendations that we can make. so that India can join this RCEP? Or how are regional agreements can be beneficial for a global agreement, right? How regional trade will promote economic interest of a domestic nation? How regional trade agreements are more beneficial than global trade agreements? So in the contemporary trade situations, how regional trade agreements like RCEP are more beneficial when compared to a common global trade agreements? You can be asked to comment, you can be asked to discuss, right? So these are the possible questions that we can expect in UPSC mains. I hope you have understood the class. Thank you.